Here we go. Another episode with Adam Morrison and myself, Dan Dickau, for Gonzaga Nation SI on the Gonzaga Nation Media Network. The season rolls on. There's some bumps to the road so far, but Gonzaga had a heck of a challenge last night against a really good mid-major team in Kent State out of the MAC. Ended up finishing on, I think it was a 10-0 run. Adam and I will chat about that as well as who impressed us last night. So, Mo, first off, thanks for joining. Good to see you again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
You know, you look at last night's game, and for the average fan that, has gotten used to 25, 30, 40-point wins at home in the non-conference, you probably expected the same last night. Basketball guy like yourself, myself, you look at it, the name Kent State, you start doing some deep dive on your prep for the broadcast, you're like, hold on a second, this is going to be a good game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we knew last year they should have been an NCAA tournament team. They had an issue with social media posts the night before the championship game, lost 4 starters. I think they won 23 games last year. Picked to finish first in the MAC. And then if you go in their net rankings, they were 25th. We're 29th. So it's kind of interesting that they're ranked ahead of us in the Ken Palm and all the stuff that kind of matters when you start doing tournament seeding. I know it's still December. So yeah, this was a good basketball team, well coached, with a culture, with experienced guys, good players. That Sincere Carey guy was a good player, even though he didn't have a great night. Averages 19, player of the year in the MAC last year. So we knew on the broadcast, and I knew, and it wasn't just, Monday morning quarterback making ourselves sound good, but we knew there was a good basketball team. And then we knew it was kind of like, I described it as like Gonzaga 12 years ago, where all the coaches around the country knew you're good, and then so nobody will play you. And we were talking to their radio guy, and Huddy actually mentioned this. They said they called 65 Power 5 schools to play them, and us, and I think Houston was the only other ones that answered the call, which is hilarious. But it just tells you, like, nobody wants to play a team like that, because in everybody's mind, especially around the program, oh, it's Kent State, you're supposed to win. It's like, well, actually, those are the teams that get a 12 seed or a 13 seed, and you're in a dogfight, and they can, win multiple games in the NCAA tournament. So I was impressed with, just their tenacity, defense, and I was impressed with our guys, making that 11-0 run late in the game to take over. But it was a fun game to call.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Senderoff the day before the game, and I kind of asked how the game came about. Very similar to what you described. They want to play anybody, especially with the group that they have this year, because they're so experienced. I remember a couple of years back, I called a game on the Pac-12 networks where Kent State beat Oregon State on the road. Now, I know Oregon State's not, top of the Pac-12, but it shows you they're willing to go anywhere. And they gave Houston a heck of a game. They were up 1 on Houston, I think, with about 50 seconds left. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they make some noise in March. And if you're a high seed, a 3, 4, 5, or 6, I would hate seeing Kent State as your opponent in that first round.
No, absolutely. They, like I said, they have the feeling of, older Gonzaga teams with, a diamond in the rough players that are, 4-year guys, experienced, that are going to play professionally at the next level, but not as highly touted as we have now. But, they have that built-in core chemistry, and they play well together. So I was just impressed with overall Kent State, but then obviously our guys finding a way to win that game. Because if you're looking at the schedule, guaranteed nobody X that one as an important one, but it's going to be a quad 1 win.
Yeah.
So it's like we don't even get quad 1 wins hardly besides St. Mary's in the last few years. And that's not a knock on BYU, but they weren't even quad 1 wins in the last 2 years. So this is going to be a good win for us on our tournament resume.
Well, I think the biggest thing that was impressive last night down the stretch was defensively. Early in the game, there were a lot of blow-bys from all perimeter players. I think the closeouts were not good angles, or they were flybys, and they gave, direct line drive opportunities for Kent State's guards. But the one guy who figured it out, and I think he figured it out in other games as well, but he figured it out last night, and that was through sheer effort and want to, and that was Hunter Salas. Took 3 charges last night. 2 of them were in the last 4 minutes of the game. The one with about a minute and a half or so left, that might have been the most impressive charge I've seen in a while. He literally had about 4 defensive rotations in a single possession before he took one on in help side. What did you see defensively from maybe Gonzaga's perimeter players, or if Hunter stood out to you as well? What were your thoughts?
Well, I think you're exactly right. Early in the game, they were just doing space the floor dribble drive, and that's kind of what they do. You know, even if you stop their initial thrust, they back up and then they go back again and try to space you out. And we left our feet, I think it was about 4 or 5 closeouts, which is, you know, obviously a cardinal sin in basketball, especially in a team that doesn't shoot it great. I mean, 33, the Thomas kid shot it decently last night and percentage wise, but it was kind of perplexing to see our guys just leave their feet. But then they figured it out in the second half after some, you know, adjustments by the coaching staff, and you can hear a few, you know, see our broadcast were right next to him. I mean, he was really getting on guys for leaving their feet. But Hunter did an excellent job of taking those 3 charges, and I think 2 were on Sincere Carey, their best player I mentioned earlier, averaging 19. Yeah, it was just a heck of a defensive play. Malachi Smith had a great, you know, I consider it like a not a pure defensive play, but that rebound and one, you know what I'm saying? So like my point is against Baylor, we didn't play great, but we made winning plays to stay in the game, and we're seeing that from this team now, which is awesome. Texas, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We get blown out of the gym. Now we're starting to see guys, hey, if we're not shooting good, and, you know, obviously Drew had a big night last night, but other guys are not doing their normal contribution offensively. We're still in ball games. We're still trying to win or have chance to win. So I was really impressed with, you know, Hunter's ability to fly around and make plays. That's going to give him more minutes on the floor.
Yeah, I think that his offense is slowly coming around. That jump shot's getting better, but defensively is where he earns his minutes now. And the more trust you earn with Coach Few, the little bit longer leash you're going to have and more minutes. And I think that offense will grow. But we talked about him being so good defensively. When you look back at whether it was your time playing at GU or now following it as a broadcaster, be your best perimeter defender as a Gonzaga Bulldog? I think on the interior, it's easy to say Chet Holmgren, maybe Zach Collins, Shemek Karnowski, Brandon Clark. But on the perimeter, who do you remember really standing out?
That's I think the best perimeter defender we've ever had, just as far as solid and team defensive rotations, was Gary Bell. I mean, I was a GA when he played, and I remember Tommy Lloyd making a really good comment. We were watching film, and, you know, he choked down on a box out weak side, and then he rotated the next play, you know, and he's just like, you win games with Gary Bell on the floor. And he was talking about his defensive prowess. And I know that doesn't jump out because he's not 6'9" and wingspan and rim protector, but he just made winning plays. He could get through ball screens, he can get through wide pin downs, and he was tough. So for me, you know, calling games and watching and coaching at that time was Gary Bell.
Yeah, there's 2 that come to mind for me. Actually, 3. Winston Brooks, who I was teammates with, Mike Nilsson, who was on that initial Elite 8 team, that he gets forgotten about a little bit because it's been 20 plus years now. And then Mike Hart, those 3 guys. And I would absolutely include Gary Bell in my list as well. I mean, they didn't give you anything. They were physical. They were good positional defenders. If you made a mistake, they would take it. But then they understood the team concepts of defense that you talked about, choking down on blockouts, being in the gaps, things that are undervalued by most people when they watch the game. So that leads me to the next question. Who is the best defender that you had to go against at the college level and then at the professional level?
College level, it's hard to remember. Even probably Corey Belzer at San Diego was a good defender, long, athletic. You know, then the NBA, the best defender I saw, like individual defender, just every day, was Ron Artest or Meta World Peace. He just was so solid. He was so quick and, you know, big, like a big trunk, so you couldn't move him off his line. And obviously he was tough, and he had an edge to him that everybody's fully aware of. So just Watching him guard guys and going against him a lot in practice, obviously, was pretty impressive because he rarely got like cooked, which is hard to say in the NBA, for anybody, because there's just nights that you can play good defense and guys go off.
Ron Artest. Yeah. I had many matchups against him, and yeah, it was I was a smaller guard, would climb right into you, and there was no way you were getting the line. I mean, a lot of it for me was like, okay, I just gotta get the ball to the entry area and get it out of my hands as quickly as possible. That's what they would do with a guy like Artest. Have him guard a point guard just to get you out of your off or get the ball into someone else's hands to try to initiate. I think at the pro level, the one guy in this, you probably will shake your head at this, Rafer Alston. I had more problems with him probably than anybody because I've never gone against a guy who gets over pick and rolls as well as he did. Like, how coaches teach skinny up, get over the top,
Yeah.
like open your shoulders up and run directly into the screen. I don't know how he did it, but I don't think he ever went chest to chest into a pick and roll. He was always up over the top. He had long arms, great instincts. So he would have been a guy, unsung, but great defensively. And then the other one for me at the college level, it was one of our losses my junior year. We played in the Great Alaska Shootout when it was a big time tournament. And it was against Marquette in the championship game. Dwayne Wade had a near quadruple double. But their little point guard, about 5'9", 5'10", Cordell Henry, I swear, when a shorter guy who's quick gets under you, you
Yeah.
can't find angles, you can't find space. They take away, a lot of your footwork type of maneuvers with jab steps or creating space. He was a difficult one for me.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's with the Spurs used to put Tony Parker on Dirk Nowitzki was the perfect example of getting up underneath you guys. It makes you feel uncomfortable just naturally, and they're not trying to do anything deep, but you just feel like you can't jump, you're going to land on them. And like you said, it takes away all your jab stuff. So yeah, sometimes when you get a smaller defender, it kind of goes against the conventional wisdom of, yeah, you need length. It's like sometimes it's more bothersome getting a guy underneath you, and then they can take charges, they can flop, you know what I'm saying, and really make your feet messed up and just make it really uncomfortable.
Last point about last night's game. It was a fun environment because the crowd was into it, but also somebody joined your name, Frank Burgess' name, and John Stockton's name in the rafters, and that was Kelly Olynyk. I think there's been a lot of kind of important players over the course of the program, and Kelly's one of them because he was the first guy that or he is a guy that was on that first number one ranked team from Gonzaga where they kind of broke through, and then they were a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think he's put together a tremendous pro career, second longest NBA career behind Stockton now for former Zags. What are your thoughts on Kelly, and what are any big memories of him and his time at Gonzaga?
Well, it's obviously a well-deserved, huge honor. Obviously, you're doing that in January, so congrats to you for that.
Thanks.
And we'll talk about that later on in another episode. But I think it's just a testament to him looking himself in the mirror as a basketball player, which is hard to do, especially even at that time, or usually when you get to college, everybody tells you you're the best. Or if it's not working out, it's the coach's fault, the program's fault. He looked at himself in the mirror and said, I need to get better, took that redshirt year, and then made it a huge leap, skill wise. And then he's paying dividends in the NBA now. So it's really good. It was nice to see him. I haven't seen him in a while. We had a summer going into that I think it was his junior year summer. We played up in the day court almost every day, one-on-one. We just talked about that on our broadcast last night, just kind of laughed because you understood this, all the old guys that came back and played with you. And then, so I was that older guy with that crew, and it was just fun because they were hungry and he was hungry. And we just played one-on-one with Stocks and Keita, who used to be, you know what I mean? Then David's brother, we just played threes or one-on-one or 2-on-2 every single day in the day court. And I remember telling people like, dude, Kelly's made a jump. Really? Because he was kind of just a bumbling, slow, big guy, but I'm like, dude, he turned into an athlete. Like, just trust me. Like, he turned into an athlete, he can shoot. And then I told him on air, like, he's going to play the longest behind John. John's a different animal. but he's going to play another 5, 6, 7 more years, right? He can pick and pop. His body's good. He doesn't take a lot of miles. I told him this and he started laughing, but I'm like, he's the type of guy where a team could go to him and be like, hey, you're not going to play for 5 games, and he won't say a word, but then, they'll put him in for 10 more. You know how they do that in the league?
Yeah.
Sometimes give a guy a run and then he'll be super productive. So like Kelly's going to do fine as far as stretching this thing out, because he's playing well already this season for Utah, and happy for him, man. It's a great honor for him.
Yeah, it is. And I love hearing those stories of when you worked with guys, or Brooks brings back memories with me, my redshirt year of John Stockton and I working out every single day my senior year, and learning from him. Obviously you had a lot of words of wisdom, I'm sure, for Kelly as you've had with other guys. That's one of the things that makes this program so special, and it makes it fun to be a part of. So Mo, great episode. Look forward to catching up on another one later this week where we preview. Don't know if you want to call them a rival or not, but they are in regards to regional powers, the University of Washington Huskies. So join us again when we talk later this week about the UW Gonzaga game.